What do you reckon, Joe? Should we do another question?
Okay. Well, as long as we're here.
All right. Well, our next question is going to come from Kris.
Hi, Paula. This is Kris from Dallas, Texas. My question is about tracking monthly expenses. I have tried web-based software from consolidators like Mint and Quicken. They can download data from my credit cards and bank accounts. However, the process is incomplete and cumbersome. Number one, not all credit or purchase card companies allow downloading of data. Number two, I use two-factor authentication for most of my credit cards, and this can cause challenges for certain card issuers. Number three, the categorization of expenses is very time-consuming. For example, purchases made at Costco or Target or Amazon can be a combination of groceries, household items, etc. These expenses have to be reviewed and categorized manually. I like using store-specific cards like Costco, Target, and Amazon since I get additional discounts. Also, bank credit cards will periodically offer 0% financing, which I like to take advantage of. Is there a simpler way to automate and keep track of expenses? Any direction you can provide is appreciated.
Kris, thank you so much for the question. First of all, the thing that you said about how Costco, Amazon, Target, about how those are, one of my eternal frustrations with the way that traditional budgeting software programs work, such as Mint and many others, and I'm not picking on Mint, is exactly that. It's exactly the issue that you described, that they need to be manually separated out. This is the percentage of that Target receipt that went to food versus went to toiletries versus went to books, right? It's just no wonder most people can't stick with a budget. It's unduly cumbersome. And so what I would recommend with regard to that is one of two things. Either you, within your budget, have a catch-all category that is Target, Amazon, Costco, right? And that is just your Target, Amazon, Costco category within your budget. And it's catch-all and it right? Like you don't segment it. That's that category. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is even broader. You, rather than line itemizing into umpteenth innumerable categories, instead, just have a budget with 3 categories or 2 categories. So a budget with 3 categories would be savings, needs, wants. That's it. And everything goes into one of those 3 buckets. Is this money that you've saved? And by save, I mean anything that contributes to your net worth. Could be literal savings in a savings account. It could be retirement contributions. It could be additional payments on a debt above and beyond the minimum required. So anything that builds your net worth is what I mean by savings. All of that goes into the savings bucket. Needs would be your mortgage, your utilities, grocery store, like that's all needs. Wants would be, honestly, even as I say this, Target, Amazon, Costco, half of that's probably needs and half of that's probably wants, right? But just pick one of the two, throw it in there, and call it done. Like, I think the problem with budgeting that a lot, and it's an issue that a lot of the design of these software programs really exacerbate, is that they want us to have an uncapped number of categories. They want us to divide our budget into 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 different categories. So we know with precision, with undue precision, precisely how much we're spending on home and gardening versus how much we're spending on clothing and apparel. Who cares, right? Who cares? The point of a budget is to make sure that you're saving enough. And I can see Joe shaking his head. He disagrees. I say the point of a budget is to make sure that you are saving enough. So start with the end in mind and design a budget with the fewest possible number of categories so that you can pay attention to what really matters, which is how much am I saving versus how much am I spending?
I agree with that statement. And actually, when you were just there, I was with you and then you lost me halfway. I think beginning with why am I budgeting in the first place makes a ton of sense, because if you're overly granular and there's no reason to do it besides your own OCD, which I know a bunch of those people, then you just have to put the OCD aside, because Kris, is going to totally frustrate you forever. And the frustration comes from the fact that these companies can't look inside of your Target bill. I mean, if they could get access inside of your Target account or get access inside of your Amazon account, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But just think about the technology that goes into that. I think we might get there at some point, but we're not. But the place where you lost me, Paula, was that there was a time when I truly needed to know where every dime was going out the window, and the contemplative and almost meditative aspect of taking that Costco bill and line iteming it into my tracking sheet was time spent burying my head in all of these transactions and contemplating, is this truly something that I needed or not? Now, I don't need that anymore, but there was definitely a time when I needed to learn that I needed a bigger appreciation for a dollar, and that tracking line by line made so much sense to me. But I would say to Kris, if you need that, I wouldn't complain about the time that you spend, because the time that you spend is a time where your conscious and subconscious brain are going to work through the issues that you're having, making your budget balance. Sometimes it is, I'm spending way too much money on this category, I'm not thinking enough about expenses. Sometimes you find out it's an income problem, and maybe there's other ways for me to make money that I'm not making. But either way, I think you do one of two things, Paula. You either shrink the categories so it doesn't drive you flipping crazy, or you just become okay with the fact that I need to spend this time.
So, Joe, it sounds to me as though the distinction is this the time spent, is it a meditative practice or is it a chore?
Yes.
That's the distinction.
Exactly.
Because
Yes.
I do, actually I haven't done it recently, but you know how there's software that helps you figure out, that tracks your net worth? Like, so for example, Personal Capital, right? It automatically tracks your net worth. Those are great, but I had a practice, and I've stopped doing it. I don't think I've done it since the pandemic, but I did it for years and years and years, and I intend to pick it up again. In which manually, twice a year, I would manually go through and calculate my net worth, and I would manually log into every single account and find the balance in that account and input it on a spreadsheet. And it took maybe 4 hours, right? Like, to log into every different account, and then to make just the four, like, it took a very long time. But by virtue of, and that's why I only did it twice a year. Because if it's going to take 4 hours, it's not something that you can do weekly or even monthly.
But I bet it was a great use of time.
Yeah, because that was meditative. Because as I logged in to Vanguard, to Schwab, to TD Ameritrade, right, I was able to think about the investments that I was making.
What's the purpose?
Yeah, exactly. And so doing it with the intention of, this is my Tibetan sand mandala, right? Like, if you wanted to create a work of art, there are more efficient ways to do it than like dropping little grains of sand, but the reason that Tibetan sand mandalas exist is because the very act of creating it is a meditative practice in and of itself. So if for you, this is your sand mandala, this is your woodworking in your wood shop, right? This is your making pesto from scratch, starting with growing the basil in your windowsill, right? It's something that you do because it's very meditative. It's you're using a mortar and pestle to grind the pine nuts, right? If that's the reason that you're doing it, great. But the mood that I got from hearing Chris's question was that to him, this is just a chore, a check mark. Like, man, I got to do this.
Yeah.
Then I got to clean
Yeah.
gutters. Then I got to buy some toilet paper. Yeah.
And the answer is that technology doesn't yet exist. I think it will at some point, but I don't know if any technology does what he wants to do. The closest one, if we're going to go right after the technology question, it's a bear to set up. There's a monthly fee.
You need a budget?
Well, no, Tiller HQ.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you need a budget.
The cool thing about Tiller HQ is it's based on spreadsheets, and there's a lot of great financial nerds that have created these different budgeting programs inside of Tiller. It's kind of open AI. What's neat about it, what's great is it embraces open banking, which the cool thing about open banking is it's the safest thing. So he talks about how a lot of systems don't play nicely with this two-factor authentication. Open banking does play nice with those. And because of the fact that spreadsheets come with shortcuts, it's a pain in the butt to set it up. But once you get it set up, you can go line by line very, very quickly and pop them in the right place. Because when I was using Mint, it would always just put it in the wrong place, and I'd have to then go scan. Well, in Tiller, you're looking at every single transaction you are putting into yourself, but I can just press the K key and it'll automatically come up with this thing that it is every time. And boom, 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 boom. I go through all my daily transactions in a very short amount of time. So that I think Tiller's the closest. The cool thing about Tiller, by the way, is this small fee that you pay because, as Peter Polson, the CEO, says, if it's free, you are the product that's being sold, right? And with Mint, I think what a lot of people don't realize is, they're scraping your data. I don't mind them scraping my data. If they want to watch my Target, that's fine. That's whatever. But I do like the fact that I know that fee means that my stuff is, I'm not being marketed in a different way.
Right. I haven't checked out Tiller. You Need a Budget is another piece of software. It's kind of a pain to set up, and there's a monthly fee. But it's very well loved inside of the FIRE community. And I've recommended it to a couple of personal friends here in New York who have been struggling with budgeting.
The thing I love about You Need a Budget is it's kind of the other side. I think Tiller, for me, is better at tracking your expenses, seeing where you've been. Mm-hmm. And it's great at that. You Need a Budget is really a philosophy of life that you're going to give every dollar a job before you earn it. So with You Need a Budget, you're actually, before you get paid, before you get paid, it's almost like you're creating this electronic envelope system of what envelope my dollar's in. And when those dollars are gone, you're not going out to eat anymore because of that. Cube Money does that pretty well as well, where you're setting up this electronic budget system.
And Cube is Qube.
Yeah. And I see those programs as a little bit different than Tiller, where it really is a master at just tracking where you've been already.
Yeah. Speaking of apps that begin with the letter Q, so this is not a budgeting app per se, but one that I really like is Capital, which also starts with a Q.
With a Q?
Yeah. Why do people name? It's like they're trying to be cute, but it only creates friction around like adoption.
I think it's also because the domain price was probably pretty cheap.
Yeah. I'm sure there's got anyway. I'm not their marketing consultant. But Capital with a Q is an app in which you can designate a certain goal. So, for example, maybe you want to buy your next car in cash, right? You designate a certain goal, you designate a particular amount of money, and then there are various ways that you can make contributions into that goal. So you could do recurring contributions, and just make it like a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly thing. Or there are also kind of fun games that you can set up. So you could do $1 in week 1, $2 in week 2, all the way up to like
that's cool.
$52 in a week 52, right?
Yeah.
So there, you can do it that way. There's all kinds of like cute, fun little ways. You can either automate it or you can make it a game.
I love some of the gamification that's out there.
Yeah.
It's so, when they do it for the right reasons,
yeah.
I think gamification is awesome.
Exactly. And Acorns is basically the investing version of that, where Acorns, every purchase that you make, it rounds up. So I love Acorns. I continue to use it. I've been using it for years and years and years. Every time that I swipe my credit card, it just rounds up my purchase to the nearest dollar. And then those remaining cents, if I'm buying something for $7.42, right, it just rounds it up to 8. It takes those remaining cents and it deposits it into an investment account. And so my Acorns balance, just from those little roundups, is I think maybe around 8,000 or 9,000 right now.
And you can even set that so it rounds to the $5 instead of to the dollar or to the $10. So you can even play with what you rounded up to on Acorns, which is interesting. What's funny with me and Acorns is that you never feel it.
Yeah,
you don't feel it in your budget at all.
You don't notice it at all. Yeah,
the friction is so little. It's great.
Yeah.
By the way, just briefly before we leave budgeting apps, I did do on the Stacking Benjamins YouTube channel, Paula, I did do a walkthrough of Cube just so people can see what it's all about. So if they go to the Stacking Benjamins YouTube channel, they can see the program in action if they're interested in looking at that.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. But yeah, to get back to Kris, to your question, fundamentally your question is about friction, right? Like Joe and I are discussing, what we like about an app like Acorns is that it removes the friction around investing because it's invisible. It's automated. It's invisible. You don't feel it. And what you're discussing is friction, right? When you have to manually go through all your transactions, when it's a chore rather than a meditation, then it is friction. And anytime that there's high friction to something, you're just less likely to do it. And so to the question of what are the lowest friction ways to adhere to a budget, my workaround has always been to reduce your budget to as few categories as possible, because the work really happens in the segmentation, in the line itemization. And so, the simplest budget, which I refer to as the anti-budget, and I've written about the anti-budget, I've even made speeches about it on stage. I spoke about it at the Economy Conference. The anti-budget is a 2-category budget. What you save, what you spend. End of story. And again, we're defining save as anything that improves your net worth. So if you were to make additional payments towards a debt, for example, extra payments on a credit card or a car loan or towards a mortgage, that would be considered savings, right? Any net worth improvement falls under the save bucket, and any spending falls under the spend bucket. And that's the anti-budget. It is a 2-category budget. So you can make it as simple as that, or you can make it save, wants, needs, or heck, do a 4-category. Save, wants, needs, and then want-need combo, which would be the Amazon Target, Costco, right? Hell, I mean, that could be your 4-category budget right there. Save, what you want, what you need, Amazon, Target, Costco.
But you get there, Paula, by starting off with, why am I doing this in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
How am I using this information?
Yeah.